Today's guest is one of the most experienced voices in partnerships and go-to-market strategy.
I founded Hockeystick 3.5 years ago. Previously, I led Xero's ecosystem across the region, and we sort of went through a phase of from about 100 partners through to about 1,200. It's not alongside inbound or outbound over on the edge. Where we see a lot of revenue leaders do that, they set up for failure. Partnerships should accelerate the strategy and not be something isolated in the corner.
This episode breaks down how partnerships really work across marketing, sales, and product, and why they're becoming a serious growth lever heading into 2026.
Partnerships has got to roll right along the customer journey from awareness, but also into retention.
If you're a founder, revenue leader, or seller thinking about your next growth channel, this is a conversation you can't afford to miss. Welcome to the Revenue Leaders Podcast.
Regan, I'm very excited today because outside of you joining our podcast, because you're out of myself and Dave can't sell for Stuka. He's not on the show. Finally, we've kicked him out of the show. And we have another superstar that's joining us, Brian. Welcome to our show.
Yeah, welcome.
Thanks, Luigi. Regan, great to be here.
Now, are you now our co-host? So this is the Revenue Leaders Podcast with Regan, Luigi, and Brian.
I feel like I need to defend Dave here. He'll be back on the next episode, but we did want to make sure that we had an expert join us around partnerships. And look, Brian, maybe for the audience, if you could introduce yourself, and for people like me, I've never used a partnership model before. Explain what it is and what the benefits are. Yeah,
sure. So I founded Hockeystick 3.5 years ago. Previously, I led Xero's ecosystem across the region, and through that, we sort of went through a phase of from about 100 partners through to about 1,200. And all of these companies, who were tech companies who wanted to partner with Xero, had hopes and dreams that potentially Xero could give them a fire hose of customers, and are looking to scale up. And through that unique lens, I got the opportunity to see what good, bad, and ugly partnerships was, and what I realized in market is a gap of where do these upcoming scaling tech companies go to figure out partnerships. And so that's what we've been focusing on for the last few years. And we see increasingly the role of partnerships, which I'm sure we'll get into here shortly, around what does it mean for revenue leaders like yourself.
So can we just take it back a step, right? Because I think for a lot of businesses that are generating revenue, they traditionally look at inbound and outbound are kind of the two key channels. Talk to us about how you've been able to enable companies to execute a channel-led pipeline creation strategy or revenue creation strategy.
Yeah, good question. I think if I answer it back to a revenue leader like yourself, I think it will be able to provide some context for it. So picture you're looking at 2026. Where does growth come from? What does it look like for 2027? Where are leads going to come from? Either inbound, outbound teams. Product-led is the other channel that we sort of see, obviously, critical. And so what is the role of partnerships to help either influence that, to drive source new revenue, to fill product gaps, or for a better together narrative? And firstly, the role of partnerships is what it's not. It's not alongside inbound or outbound over on the edge. So it's not like you would have a business unit, it's like, you just go deliver partnerships for it. Where we see a lot of revenue leaders do that, that's where they set it up for failure. Because whilst the majority of roles are partnership managers, in market still remain, like go source a bunch of leads. And if you think about the inbound model, where it's the marketing team's usually responsible for delivering MQLs, there's the hopes and dreams of revenue leaders to say, partnership, can you contribute referrals leads around that? And at our Sydney event last week, I was speaking to a partner manager on this exact topic where his boss was just like, you need to fill this amount of leads immediately and to go market and go demand referrals from everyone. And that's what it's not. And so that's not setting it up for success. So where we come in to answer your question is, well, what is the company strategy? How and where are we going to go to market? And then what is the role of partnerships across all go-to-market functions to complement and drive that forwards? So in your instance, Regan, I would say, well, what is the role of partnerships to support marketing? We ran events ourselves this week with our good partners, Firmable, and through both co-promoting the event, they expand our reach audience for that. For people who came along, which we typically wouldn't have access to. So on the marketing front, partnerships can help accelerate the top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, and have influence through. On the sales front, whether it's outbound, inbound, or your team out driving business, partners play a role to help for influence, insights and intros along the way to say, oh, you're chatting to these people. What's the relationships? Who's the key stakeholders? So when we present this at conferences, I like to throw around this American buzzword, OPM, which is a good one to remember and pass back in your team. OPM, other people's money, right? So like in sales, marketing and product, well, if you're able to expand with and through partnerships on a sales front, that might mean you might have to hire as many salespeople. On the marketing front, you might not have to reach as far.
Yeah.
On a product front, and we definitely saw this at Xero, was others were building solutions alongside, which Xero didn't have to build. They could remain core to building the accounting platform and hair and beauty apps and construction apps fell from others to solve for. So partnerships should accelerate the strategy and not be something isolated in the corner.
Yeah.
And starting from that lens, the top down, then what we're looking at in today and the main trend we're seeing is partnerships has got to roll right along the customer journey from awareness, but also into retention, customer support right at the end, and it weaves around. And so the trend we're seeing is it's not just partnerships now, it's the full partner ecosystem. And what does that holistically look like right that's connected to the strategy that we're seeing making a big impact?
That is a perfect summary about what it is. So do you think that it's then relevant, from what I'm hearing, it could work for not just, say, tech startups, for example. This could be something if you're a larger organization, your growth is stagnant, this is something that should potentially be considered for, like you said, moving into that 26, 27 sort of like business planning as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we see it much broadly. Whilst our focus has been on B2B tech, we're seeing it more broadly for B2B, and this is the next phase for our own business as we look forward with a 1 to 3 year lens. I remember, Luigi, you introduced me to a commercial cleaning company, right? A guy that's like servicing companies right across Melbourne, and the conversations with him was, well, you should be chatting to those who come and do the plants in the offices around that as well. Yeah. Who does the drinks and the lunches for that comes in? Because we describe ecosystem is working with those who have access to or are talking to your ideal customers.
Yeah.
And I spoke to him about a year later, and he'd started to expand these partnerships for it. And I said to him, these other companies, you build these relationships, build mutual success plans, help each other win, but you need to think of them like they actually work for you, but you also work for him.
Yeah.
And so you're able to grow your business together. So we're seeing much more broadly in B2B that the role of partnerships is expanding, which is, great for us, and it's been fueling our growth of our business and the opportunities that we're seeing more broadly too.
So talk to me, one of the things that I'm obviously a big fan of channel partnerships, right? Like having seen many companies execute and also adding that to our go-to-market strategy previously. But walk me through the importance of, because again, I think a lot of revenue leaders, they're looking for the now, right?
Yes.
They're looking for revenue today. And if we see some of the data, there's probably over 65% of teams are missing quota.
Yes.
And so you have a bit of a dilemma as a sales leader, right? A revenue leader. I've got to generate pipeline and I've got to create revenue. Otherwise, my tenure could be short.
Sure.
And I think, 18 months average tenure for a CRO and most senior revenue leaders. So walk me through, from a strategic perspective, how does a revenue leader look at their go-to-market strategy and say, right, I want to implement a channel strategy or a partnership ecosystem, but I also have competing interests or competing priorities with generating net new pipeline.
Yep.
How does one tackle that challenge?
Yeah, and one of the feedback we'll have from revenue leaders often is like, I tried and it failed because we try to do something in next week, or where's all my fire hose of customers, right? Which is usual mindset. And picture a revenue leader where they're behind on quota, on leads or revenue, and they're falling behind. They'll reach out like, hey, can we chat in the next few days? And they'll clear their diary. We're like, right, we've got all these partnerships. We need them to fill a gap next week. And guess what? That doesn't work, right? So, all of our engagements and when we're working with the leaders, we actually get everyone in a room at a C-suite or a founder level or exec, because firstly, everyone has to understand what is the role of partnerships for an organisation to be able to deliver against that. So to answer your question with an 18 months lens, Partnerships will deliver in the second part of that. And the investment today, which you're starting to do on a strategic level and building into that, and through our program, that's what we develop our capability to be able to make that second year really start to fire.
Okay.
The first year we're seeing it's a really foundational year, because if you're going to put it into your plan for next year, like, why would people refer you in? Why would you work with them?
Yeah.
What motions do you need to do? What campaigns? These are not things which are going to make immediate impact right now. Now, sure, there's going to be some quick fire wins, and we go through a process where, like, let's build some pilots and momentum to validate to get it going. But from our perspective, now 3.5 years in, we're commonly seeing companies we've worked with in the second year that we've worked with, they're hiring ahead of partnerships because they've developed a pilot, they've validated it, they've now got a line of sight to the ROI. So when we're working with leaders like yourself, they say, well, I can see the strategic line that we can put on his head of partnerships for what it can grow into, contribute towards leads, to close business, and develop into other channels and regions.
I think you're really onto something there as well, because and this is, I think, a challenge of any revenue leader strategy, or say for me, I work with accountants and professionals that when I work with them on a strategy, they come back and they're like, it hasn't worked. And it's like, great, what's your timeline? And it's generally like, 2 weeks, 4 weeks. I'm like, okay, well, if we look at our data, from open opportunity to closed is 16.7 months. And that's from 6 Sense and Green Hat stats for APAC. Yeah. And it also correlates to what we do at Grant Thornton. So it's like, okay, if you're going to dedicate any time to a strategy, you at least have to put in 16.7 months, So I and then the compound interest of that, like you said, year 2, really important.
Yeah.
Right?
But I think, this is, I think, a great topic, right? Pardon the interruption. I'm Luigi, one of the co-hosts here at Revenue Leaders. You'll notice we don't run sponsors or ads on Revenue Leaders.
This show is free. Our goal is to help you grow revenue and build your sales system that you can rely on. We do have a favour to ask though.
If this episode gives you one clear idea that you can use, do these 2 things. First, share it with one person, a founder, a revenue leader, or a rep who wants to grow their business. Just one. That's how the show grows.
Second, grab free access to our vault over at coachpilot.com/vault. Inside, you'll get the frameworks, templates, and short courses we use with clients to help them scale pipeline and increase win rates.
So the deal is simple. If you get value, share the episode with one person and go to coachpilot.com/vault to get the tools to put this into action. All right, let's get back to it.
Right, because I think for many leaders, it's like when people start training for a marathon or the gym, they want to go from 0 to 100 straight away, right?
Yeah.
But there's a time required to get to that point of success. And the question that I want to build on from what you just mentioned, if you were coaching Regan, for example, as a revenue leader.
Yeah, we just started.
Yeah, we started.
Absolutely.
How would you build a business case internally? Because if I'm listening to this show, I'm like, you know what? I need to build this ecosystem. Hearing Brian say it's a 12 to 18 months process. How would you build a business case to bring to your colleagues, exec, to say, this is a part of the strategy we want to embark on?
Yeah.
Guide us through how you would coach Regan on building that business case.
Yeah, we'll play a hypothetical napkin maths game, right? So picture you're doing $10 million a year in B2B tech space that we focus in. Average revenue sourced from partners is about 30%, right? So we always start off with, well, what percentage of revenue or leads comes from partnerships today? What do you want to get it to? Then how do we, in a lot of the engagements we've got going right now, we're focusing on what we call no regrets activity to build partner capabilities to be able to grow into the outcomes of what we want to do. The other thing to be considered is, well, what resourcing do you have to put towards this? Because the other problem we have is we want this fire hose of customers. Yeah. Can't they just come to us and we just put it on the strategy pack? So we also look internally and say, well, is this initially, who's going to own this? Whilst we have the exec support, is it a secondment role to start off with split role, sales and partnerships? marketing and partnership? Is it a dedicated resource that you're committed to grow into this, and knowing that it takes time to establish and get this going, and make sure that right at the top level that you've got ongoing support and belief that this can come through.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting, even when we get that going and everyone's really excited that partnerships is this horizon that we're building towards, it's not uncommon that 6 months later, the execs are like, right, Brian, partnerships, we need that 30%. Where is it right now? And I go, all right, let's all get together again. Okay, this is what we said we're going to do. We're showing these green shoots. And then what we see is these emerging trends come through because we've got data to talk to it. Those with partner-led leads, guess what? They're usually bigger. They close faster. They stay longer. They're a better fit. They're way down the funnel. We've got more reach. And as you get this validation and being data-led, then the business, like, what else do you need?
Yeah, that light bulb kind of.
Because now the data's talking to it. It's real. It's happening. And then the conversation changes and shifts to say, well, what else can we do to 5x or 10x this as we're starting to build to momentum?
So what I'm hearing is the business case is all about managing real expectations and setting a timeline as to what will happen, and then using data to back up the hypothesis.
Yep.
So individuals aren't pressuring to see those results earlier.
With an executive sponsor at the top that's willing to make that investment over, say, a multi-year.
Yeah. In the same way, I think the analogy I always say back to revenue leaders is you're not going to build out a sales team immediately and they just start tomorrow and they just start delivering leads, right? You build a sales
that's a
process,
challenge,
right?
People, that's a challenge. Many leaders are like, I hire an SDR team. I want leads today, right? And even with enablement initiatives, people are like, we want to implement an enablement, a playbook, a training, and we want results tomorrow.
Yeah, I think,
I think that's the biggest challenge. I think for many of us around the table is, yes, in theory, and this is why I'm really excited to hear you coach us or coach Regan through how to build that business case, because I think in theory we know that it takes time to implement a strategy, but yet this is the competing interests or competing priorities of a founder.
Yes.
They've got investment, could be a larger enterprise organization that they need pipeline. Like we're talking to a business at the moment, and their direction, their strategy was set from HQ, which is outside of APAC. They've set these massive growth targets, and he's talking to us saying, how are we going to get there? Like, do we have to hire? Do we have to do this? Can we do train? Like, budget's not an issue, which is a great opportunity for us. But I empathize with him because somebody else is setting the direction for the region. Right?
I understand. But in that environment with a sales lens, you still need systems, processes, and people.
Yeah, 100%.
And so the missing gap with partnerships is you still need to build that with partnerships.
Yeah.
You got a CRM in that example. Well, you might need a partner relationship management, or at least set up your CRM to operate like that initially. And the other part with that, once you go through all that process and you go, well, okay, we get it, we're on to partnerships, then, the framework we build through after our align phase, which we kick off with, is validate phase. And that's simply put of, why would these partners care about you whatsoever at all? Because this is an internal lens company like, yeah, we're going to do partnership, we're hiring people, we're doing this. We go through this phase, well, we've looked at all the total ecosystem, we want to look at these partner categories, we want to look at these participants. But now we actually have to go through the phase to earn the right that they want to work with us through it. And through 70 plus companies we've worked with, we've learned that this is probably the most critical missing gap that companies overlook. Because you want it to fill your gap to the sales leader, well, why would they want to work with you? What are you going to offer them? What's in return? Yeah. Because you're not going to get their resources, time, or capacity if you don't nail that.
Yeah, and that's where reciprocity comes in. So one thing I guess we do at GT that there is kind of like a partnership model is referrers. Yeah. So we have, and we dedicate a lot of time to our banking and legal professionals. And that ecosystem, I guess, creates that reciprocity. We always make sure that it works both ways. There are times when you obviously invest and then realize it doesn't work both ways, and you kind of have to make a call. But it's a really interesting point.
But with those referrals coming through, are they reactive, opportunistic, when like, oh, you should chat to these guys at a certain
It's
time?
more like for transactional work, which is, a transaction comes up in a moment in time and you have to kind of jump on it. So like for that, I think it works really, really well. And it's a one-to-one. So it's very much on I am a professional in my field and as are you. We enjoy working together. Our quality of work is equal. And therefore I know that there's trust when we work on the same deal supporting a particular organization.
But the fallacy of that, you can't plan that on a sales revenue because opportunities come around it.
100%.
So to get
to
get partnerships firing, if you picture in an environment where you're actually able to systemize that and have a line of sight to how many partner referrals you get in on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis to be able to provide a line of sight to the ROI, but then for you to invest more, to be able to answer the question back to the sales leader to say to do it. And so what we do is we look to activate that as an engine going through. Yeah, because if there was a consistent flow through building campaigns, nurturing a relationship and working out ways through mutual success plans that we can look forward, not back, then it's very easy for you to be able to make an investment, more resources into that as a channel.
Yeah, because you can justify the investment. Hey, I've got a question. So now I want to take it away from the lens of leader. We have a lot of sales professionals that have their individual contributors that listen to our show. Now, if they're listening to this, they go, oh, look, I love this, I want to build more pipeline. Walk us through how an individual, because maybe their organization won't invest in a partner-led or ecosystem. What can they do to create their own ecosystem so that they're not just always relying on inbound and just traditional outbound models?
Yeah, we worked with a company earlier in the year just on this exact topic. And enterprise sales, right? Individual, big target, responsible, got a black book, you're exhausted, you don't really want to annoy these people. So the coaching that we worked for in that example was, let's go look back at your last 10 deals.
Yeah.
Who had access? Who else were they talking to? Is there a common theme? Is there 3 or 4 people or companies who have been selling into the same organization for them?
Yeah.
So the very simple advice back to that sales leader is go develop a relationship that you manage ongoing and treat them as part of your team. I said OPM before. So you want to go find these people, they work for you. That's the lens, but you work for them. Go set up a monthly meeting with them and work out ways where you can share them insights, potential opportunities, see if there's any way you can help them personally or for their company. Because if they've been working with the same deals you've been closing or talking to, they're likely to have access to more of it, which you won't be able to do it. So harness your surrounding ecosystem to help work closely with you to unlock the next quarter, the next year, and build a pipeline from that.
I love that. And I think that's a great place to kind of wrap up. So if you had like one last bit of advice for our listeners and then how to contact you, like where do they come connect with you?
Yeah, I think let's come back to the ecosystem analogy. Work out who has access to the customers you want to go after and go build deep relationships with a select 2 or 3 and nail that.
Yeah.
That's going to provide the pilot and the blueprint that you can then replicate and set up for scale. And to find out more about us, hockeystickadvisory.com. We're really annoying on LinkedIn, so follow us. Not as annoying as Luigi and Dave, mind you. They definitely lead the way, and it's where I draw my.
I knew our new co-host.
That old guy that used to be on here, and I always draw our inspiration from the stuff that they put out and great stuff. So it's been great to chat to you guys today.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.